From gold bars falling in a city in Siberia to a bunch of little fish falling from the sky in Mexico, here are some very strange rains of objects and animals that you may never have seen. Let's get started. On a beautiful August day in 2020, the residents of a small town of Olten, Switzerland were preparing for a day like no other. Some of them had left their homes to go to work or to do other things when they were surprised by a rain of cocoa falling from the sky. But how did this happen, you might ask? In fact, the cocoa came from a famous chocolate factory located in the industrial area of the small town between Basel and Zurich. According to the company, a defect in the ventilation system used to cool the roasted cocoa beans caused the cocoa to rain down over the town due to the strong wind that was blowing that day. Surprised and fascinated at the same time, the inhabitants began to watch this rain fall for a few days. They had a great time, and maybe some of them would have enjoyed it. Yes, but here's the thing. The cocoa had covered a good part of the city, including the parked cars. Just look at what it looked like. And then, who says cocoa? Says a good cleaning to be envisaged to clean all this fine brown powder, which had piled up a little everywhere. But finally, everything went back to normal afterwards, while the management of the chocolate factory promised to take care of the cleaning of one of the cars which had been particularly touched by this cocoa rain. After all, cocoa is not that dangerous. This is an unusual experience that the inhabitants of this small town, especially the chocolate lovers, will never forget in their lives. The people of Florida can boast of mild winters, unlike many other American states. Some take advantage of this to do many activities, like going to water parks, for example. But in January 2020, the inhabitants of this state, known for its mild climate, experienced a rather special cold season. Indeed, the temperatures became very low, approaching 0 degrees Celsius. Not only did they have to suffer one of the coldest winters, but they also witnessed a rare unusual event: a rain of iguanas. Indeed, because of the cold, these reptiles fell from the top of the trees where they had taken refuge and remained motionless on the ground. The Floridians watched this rain of iguanas fall with a fascinated look. It is true that they were happy to be able to witness this rather intriguing and rare phenomenon, if only once in their lives. But at the same time, these residents must have felt a great sadness at the sight of these poor frozen iguanas falling from the trees. However, these people were relieved to learn that in reality, this was a completely normal phenomenon and that these iguanas were not dead. Indeed, if these cold-blooded animals act in this way, it is an instinct of survival because it allows them to preserve a maximum of energy. Yes, but why do they have to fall from the top of the trees? Well, when temperatures drop, the body of these reptiles stiffens and becomes immobile. Since they can no longer hold on to the trees, they fall, frozen but alive. Once the temperature rises again, the iguanas return to their normal state and get up as if nothing had happened. This is reassuring. However, as relieved as they are, Floridians will never forget this unusual rain. Do you like this video? Then don't forget to give us a like, to subscribe to the channel, and to activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything of our next publications. Let's continue. At a golf course near the city of Los Angeles, USA, one of the course marshals was making his rounds to make sure everything was okay on the course. As he was driving his cart, he noticed something moving on the grass. The supervisor steered his car towards the tee of hole 12, where the mysterious thing that had just caught his attention was located. His curiosity was finally satisfied when he discovered that it was a small leopard shark of about 60 centimeters that had just landed on the golf course. A fish on a golf course? How could such a thing happen, you might ask? And then you are probably wondering, what could have brought this leopard shark to this place, right? Well, here's a logical answer. According to the club's director of operations, who had a close look at the animal, as well as the wounds on its back, this shark had been caught by some raptor, which then released it on the course. One can imagine the stress that this incredible discovery caused to the supervisor, as well as the director of operations of the club, and the golfers that were present at that time, because this little shark had to be saved, and quickly. In fact, these brave people quickly plunged the fish into a container of water before bringing it back to the ocean, where it began to swim a few moments later, to their great relief. What a beautiful and strange memory that they must have had that day. The inhabitants of the Siberian town of Yakutsk are quiet people who live almost in isolation and even far from the attention of the media, although they would sometimes like their town to be in the news, something that ended up happening precisely in March 2018 when a rain of gold bars fell on the city. But where did all the gold come from? Certainly not from the clouds. In fact, the reason for this never-before-seen rain of gold was quite different and not at all strange. Indeed, a Russian plane carrying 9.3 tons of gold lost part of it, estimated at more than 3 tons at the time of takeoff because of a technical problem at the level of the door of the hold. No need to tell you what can happen when such a treasure falls from the sky on our heads, as if by chance. With all of this gold scattered on the tarmac of the airport of Yakutsk and a little everywhere on the city, the inhabitants, attracted by the unprecedented incident, did not hesitate to go in search of this gold. And how? Some saw it as a golden opportunity. It is said that some even managed to get their hands on this precious metal. However, this must have caused them a lot of trouble because of all the policemen who were present all over the city in order to control the cars of the inhabitants, in case some of them would have hidden some ingots. However, all of the commotion and the gold rush eventually stopped. In fact, a spokesman for the conglomerate that owns the mine where the gold bars came from had already stated that all the gold that had fallen from the plane had been recovered, and the inhabitants were finally free of all the police checks and searches. Well, we don't know if one of the inhabitants of Yakutsk became rich because of this extraordinary rain of gold, but in any case, this incident will remain engraved forever in the minds of these people. Now imagine that you are walking in the woods with a friend. You want to enjoy the nice weather and the sun shining again after several days of rain. But while you're walking on the wet ground, something suddenly catches your attention. You walk over and gently lean into this strange-looking substance that you have never seen before and that suddenly fascinates you. Even though you don't know what it is, and even though you don't know where it comes from, you can't resist touching this strange thing. That's it. You've just taken this whitish, gelatinous material in your hands and call your friend to show him what you have just found. Your friend, who knows all about it, tells you that it is a stellar jelly. In other words, according to you, this stellar jelly is a meteor shower or some other celestial body. You are definitely lucky. Who would have thought that one day you would come across this unexpected treasure? But then you learn from your friend that it is actually the vomit of some animal that has just devoured a pregnant female toad. What a horror! Your friend also informs you that the eggs swelled in the predator's stomach when they came into contact with the humidity, which led him to return them to the wild. Thanks to the humidity, these eggs, which are covered with a hydrophilic membrane, have ended up taking this shape, letting the curious like you believe that it is something extraordinary that has just fallen from the sky. Besides, many people before you had found this stellar jelly by chance in nature. Some, like you, believed that it really came from the sky, while others let fly a lot of explanations and theories as incredible as crazy as the origin of this doubtful matter. You hasten to wipe your hands with a paper handkerchief, knowing in advance that in the evening you will spend hours researching this famous stellar jelly that has put stars in your eyes. Now, here's a group of frogs waiting quietly in a pond. Everyone knows that these amphibians like to spend most of their time in water, but sometimes they can be subject to strange natural phenomena, especially during storms. Indeed, because of their lightness, frogs can be sucked into a tornado or caught in strong winds that lift them up, as happened in Serbia in 2005. On that day, a group of frogs had to make the journey through the sky to the town of Odzaci, 120 kilometers from the capital of Belgrade, where they were finally able to free themselves from the grip of the winds. How did they do it? By falling from the clouds, quite simply. That day, it was raining, not robes, but frogs, to the great surprise of the inhabitants of the city, who had probably never seen such a thing in their lives, nor heard about frogs raining before. Nevertheless, the fall must have been painful and perhaps fatal for many of them. Fortunately, those that survived the fall jumped up and down in search of a new pond or other suitable watering hole to take shelter in. Now, it is true that frog rains are not unusual phenomenon in themselves, but as a result of this unusual incident, these frogs became stars in the local press. On a beautiful September day in 2017, residents of the city of Tampico, Mexico, quietly watched the rain fall through their windows. Some even went out of their homes to offer their faces this beneficial rain. But what a surprise it was when they realized that something else was raining with the water. It was only when they came closer to see that their curiosity could finally be satisfied. It was actually raining fish. Yes, it was raining fish on this coastal town, much to the fascination of its inhabitants, who couldn't help but feel somewhat perplexed, even horrified to see this rain of fish fall on their town. Indeed, many of them wondered, but where do all these fish come from? However, they quickly regained their serenity when they understood that in reality, these small fish that were falling scattered on the ground had been caught in a waterspout, a kind of whirlwind of air and water that occurs above the water. The fish would have been sucked up by this waterspout somewhere in Sri Lanka before being transported to this Mexican coastal city. A natural phenomenon that is not strange, but we can assume that the inhabitants of this city of Tampico will remember this unprecedented rain of fish for a long time. You have just discovered some very strange rains that have fallen in different parts of the world. Tell me, which one of these rains amused, fascinated, or shocked you the most? And have you ever seen animals or other objects falling from the sky? Tell us about it in the comments. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.